Why do we need to contemplate our own malevolence? I know it seems self-evident. No, actually it doesn't. By no means does it seem self-evident. And I understand it for reasons such as knowing what you're capable of so you can be careful to avoid it. But what if you get stuck in it? How do you move forward after being aware of it, especially if you've actually done it? I'm not speaking of criminal behavior. Well, you have actually done it, and so has everybody else. So that's the first thing you realize, is that this is a universal human problem. It's also your problem, and it's your personal problem. But it's a universal human problem. And so in some sense, you can let yourself off the hook by realizing that. It's useful. That's partly why I think it's useful. I mean, that's why I've been writing these books, is to say, well, here's the human universal situation, the horror of nature, the benevolence of nature, the tyranny of social structure, the protecting, sheltering, and nurturing aspect of human social structure, the nobility of the psyche, the malevolence of the adversary, all wrapped up in the dragon of chaos. That's human reality as I conceive it. And I think it's from that reality that religious stories are extracted. That's really what makes them religious, is that they have those characters, those archetypal characters, as the spirits that communicate to us and that are represented by our religious stories and in part by our ideologies. Well, you need to contemplate your own malevolence because that helps you understand who you are and who you could be. And you could be something absolutely brutal and terrible. You could be the worst manifestation of those who criticize the patriarchy, of that which those who criticize the patriarchy accuse you of, right? Nothing but motivation by power. And that's certainly there, especially to the degree that you're resentful and ungrateful, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess so you need to contemplate your own malevolence so that you understand who you are. And that means you have to contemplate malevolence as such, because you're not only who you are, you're who you could be, for better or worse. And I actually think it's a lot easier to start to understand who you could be if you were better, if you deeply understand who you could be if you were worse, and who you might be to the degree that you're blind to that worse presently. So you think, oh my God, I could be that malevolent, a force for ill. That's horrible, but highly compelling and plausible given my understanding of my own character. I'm way deeper on the negative end than I thought, much more closely aligned with the forces of hell than I presumed. Well, that's easy to swallow factually, right? You think, yeah, there's evidence for that. It's not so easy to swallow emotionally. It's a bitter pill, to say the least. It's the black pill, let's say. Well, what does that mean? Well, though it means that there's a countervailing spirit, and that's the spirit that opposes that, and that's what you could embody. And so I don't think that you can contemplate the good without contemplating the evil first, even first. I don't think it has the depth. They say that fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. It's something like that necessary fear. It's like, well, I don't want to be a monster. Okay, well, how much of a monster are you? Well, I'm as monstrous as I have been, so that's on me, conscience-wise, but I'm also the same being that's been as monstrous as any being throughout history. No, nothing human is foreign to me, let's say. Well, so are you the Nazi prison guard? Well, are you so sure you aren't? That's the real question. And if you're not so sure you aren't, well, are you so sure that you shouldn't be? And I think that's an easier question. I think you're more sure than you shouldn't be. You're more sure that you shouldn't be. If someone asked you, you would say, well, I shouldn't be that, and perhaps have very little qualms on the topic, qualms about the topic. So that's what you should not be. Well, what's the antithesis of that? Well, let's say it's a good man. Or more broadly speaking, a good person. That's the opposite of what's malevolent, and that's a good place to start. It's like, well, not that first, and then I can stumble up towards the light, insofar as I've been able to master my darkest self and to contemplate what that might be and to decide that that isn't where I'm going. no matter what. Expediency be damned. And I think that's enough for tonight. Thanks very much for listening and asking questions. I hope that my answers are helpful.